Well, still morning at NTV, and as we come to the crown of this morning's conversations, we want to look at poverty alleviation models among the youth. And I'm joined by a very smart youth all the way from Ntungamo district in studio with me this morning. This is Mr. Phillip Ankwasa to give us a perspective on community demand-driven approaches that can actually help address the issues of young people. Good morning to you, Phillip.
Good morning.
Nice to have you.
Thank you so much.
So let us talk about young people. First of all, as young people, we are in a worry state. Of course, you know what happened from the financial year last into the new one. There's been budget cuts that directly affect youth, their activities and the plans. So several interventions, of course, have been sought thereafter, trying to cater to improving on the welfare of the youth in Uganda. In regards to your perspective, what do you make of that?
Thank you once again for having me here. I don't take this for granted, having this opportunity on one of the biggest media platforms in the nation, giving a simple update about the budget cuts of our budget as a National Youth Council. I think I should take this opportunity to inform the nation that actually our budget was reinstated. I would like to thank His Excellency Amartya Sen for listening to the calls of young people. We happened to have an engagement with him last week before our National Youth Council meeting and International Youth Day celebrations in Kabale. Before that, we had an engagement with him, with all the stakeholders that are involved, the Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Gender, Ministry of Youth, and all national delegates. We had an engagement with him where we put across different issues, and actually it was positive in the end that our budget was reinstated back to 4 billion from the 800 millions that it had been cut to. But if you're to still look at that, it's still quite insufficient. Imagine a whole National Youth Council running a budget of just 4 billions. It's quite so insufficient.
Yet the youth are marking up the greater population.
The greater population, about 75+%. You know, when you look, when we're at work, when we're working within this 4 billion budget, taking it down to the district youth councils, you realize that a district youth council, for example, will only be running a budget of about 1 million Ugandan shillings for a whole quarter. Now, when it comes to areas like mine, where I come from, Ntungamo district, where we have a wider coverage, I have about 34 administrative units, that's sub-counties and town councils. That's quite a very big area, and you're just running a 1 million plus something little budget for a whole quarter. Yeah, that's quite so insufficient.
Okay, so while we are crying for the government to help us as young people, on the side of the young people, what's their contribution to the socio-economic development of the country?
Thank you so much for that question. Before we look at our cries and our contributions to the national economy, I think we need to look at this in a wider perspective. Historically, if you look at at Uganda, where we came from and where we are now, we are still having a wide range of issues as a nation. Even though ever since this government assumed power in 1986, we have seen notable strides in poverty reduction. Looking at statistics, you might see about 19.7% in 2013 up to about 8.7% in 2020. But still, Uganda is still stated amongst the poorest countries in the world, meaning we still have much to do. So when you look at it in that direction, it's not just even us crying. Being the biggest percentages of the populace of this nation, we ought to be most affected. But I can tell you, even with all these challenges that we are facing as young people, you'll be inspired by the resilience these young people are putting across. We are, we are innovating. We are getting involved in different things. When you look at agriculture, young people are coming up with different innovations. when you look at ICT, you know, so many young people are coming up with different solutions. Young people are going to school.
Okay.
They are going to higher education. They are going to institutions, technical institutions. They are equipping themselves with some skills that are not just helpful to their own individual prospects, but rather to the whole nation at large. We are providing this nation with a very well-skilled workforce, which not only adds to our individual prospects, but to the nation's growth.
Okay.
As a whole.
Let's talk about the poverty alleviation methods and measures and programs that the government has put out there. First of all, what's the youth consumption of these programs, even if they just give it a certain percentage of their monies and the different elements of the program? But then again, of that 30%, for example, on the PDM, what's the consumption or the utilization of the young people? And then why do we still continue to see a deteriorating influence of the young people on the economic side of it, even with such measures in place? What is causing the deficit there?
Oh, thank you so much. There are so many issues involved. Even though, before we even look at the current model, the parish development model, the government has come up with so many different initiatives. For example, through the State House, the presidential initiative of these skilling hubs that we are having in each and every region, where young people get to, you know, trained in different categories. Then, but then when we go to the parish development model, the youth, you know, they are supposed to be the biggest beneficiaries of these programs. But when you look at before these models are brought on table, when you look at them, they are very good. These are very good policies. But then the issue is on the is on the implementation. Even on the construction of all these models, there should be involvement of the intended beneficiaries. There should be a wider range of involvement of these intended beneficiaries. When it comes to the youth, who are the biggest percentage of this population, I would expect them to be more involved in the construction process of these models, and then also in the implementation of these models. Okay. But when you look at the way it is structured at the moment, we need, for example, us youth leaders, we need to be empowered to get out there, mobilize young people.
All right. Speaking of empowerment, in your closing remarks, what's your word of empowerment to the young people in Uganda?
Thank you. Still on the empowerment, as I'm closing up, you know, we have this very good structure of the National Youth Council with its core mandate to mobilize, organize young people for different government programs and also protect them from any kind of manipulation. But when you look at, for example, we're talking of the insufficiency in budgets, it's like sending me to war with a gun with no bullet. And you expect me to actually overcome that battle. So I would expect young leaders to be fully empowered when it comes to these programs, for them to be successful.
All right.
And still in my closing remarks, I would love to call upon my fellow young people that we have to agree and take note of the fact that we need to do away with individualism when it comes to us getting ourselves from one level to another level. We have to do away with the individualism and see how best can we come together, work together. Look at, for example, the parish development model, its major core pillar, mindset change. We have to change our mindset and start looking at working together.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Phillip Ankwasa. He is a youth chairperson to Ntungamo district, and his voice to the youth is that let's have collective efforts towards what we want to desire. Given the fact that we have the biggest population here, we might as well start to collectively join hands and have a bigger influence on what is happening in our country. That marks the end of Morning at NTV. Happy birthday to you, George, we want to shower you with water, but we'll also be showering you with some gifts. But George is our colleague here in NTV, and we wish you nothing but the very best in the next 365 days. Have a good day.